This is going to be kind of a more personal video. I've been thinking lately, doing some reflecting, and for a lot of my adult life, I've kind of identified myself by my profession as a teacher. I've been around education almost my whole life. Like most Canadians, I started school at 5 years old. I went through until I was 18. Then I went to university, then I worked, and then I went back to university, then I worked, then I went back. And for a lot of years, I did both. I taught and took courses at the same time. I have all the right letters after my name. I had a revelation the other day. I'm not sure if I ever, in one sense, really was a teacher. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm certified. I have Nova Scotia Northwest Territories teacher's licenses. I have all the right letters after my name. Um, Actually, I have a ridiculous number of letters after my name. I have a Bachelor of Arts in English. I have a Bachelor of Science with a double major in physics and mathematics. I have a Bachelor of Education specializing in the secondary level. I have a Master of Science, and I have a PhD in Education. Education has really defined my life to a large extent. And I thought, I don't really think it does anymore. I've been away from teaching for a year and a half now, other than some tutoring and the occasional sub day and a little bit of online consulting. But really, it's not central to my life anymore, and it's an adjustment. But it's made me stop and think, how much was it ever really my life? In over 20 years of teaching, I've met some really, really terrible teachers and some really, really good teachers, and a whole lot in between. I'm not going to start naming names, but I could rhyme off people from Bridgetown Regional High School, people I knew in Teachers College, people who are naturals, people who were born to be teachers, and they do a fantastic job, and it comes naturally to them. I was never one of those people. I was a better student than a teacher. I'm good at learning. I'm pretty quick on my feet, and I'm a good communicator, so I made it through. I was able to teach students, and it just never really came naturally to me. If anything, I was an actor rather than a teacher. Every time I stepped into a classroom and stepped in front of a class, I was putting on a performance. It's not that I didn't care about the kids. That's not what I mean. I wasn't faking that part. Most of the best people I know are former students. They, there are some fantastic ones. Fortunately, I'm still in touch with some of them, friends on Facebook and so on. And there are some of these people that I think of as kids who have grown into young adults who, either through their abilities or through their strength of character, are going to do far more for this world than I have. Privileged to have known them and worked with them. And then there are a few students that you remember for the other reasons, the reasons that you know are not so good, but you kind of put that behind you and kind of think, well, that's over, it's done. When you're a young teacher, you tend to take conflicts personally. Once you've been around a while, you start to realize it's not personal anymore. Um, I feel that I dealt with a lot of anxiety when I was teaching. By about February or March of every year, I would start to feel that, you know, I'd wake up in the morning, oh God, do I really have to go to work? I would be praying for storm days. I would be, I would be, so anxious that I would consider calling in sick at 6 or 7 in the morning because I couldn't face a day. And it's not that I didn't like the kids. It's not that I didn't like the people I worked with. They're great people, but it's just the job. Um, some of it was the administrivia, the administration stuff that was a horrible pain. Some of it was just getting up and talking and being on that rigorous schedule where, something starts at 8:47 and runs until 9:43, and then something else goes from 10:17 until 11:21, and regulating your bathroom breaks and regulating your body and trying to regulate people who are people, they're not robots. It was very, very difficult for me. I had a hard time with it a lot of the time. Do I miss it? No, I don't. I miss some of the people I worked with. Like I said, great people. I miss some of the students I worked with, and I miss working with students in general. There's still some students there who I would like to have the opportunity to try to help develop. But I mean, really good teachers inspire. And I always used to tell young teachers who are either people considering becoming teachers or new teachers on the job that you can't view it as a job. It's not a job, it's a lifestyle. If you're going to do it right, it's a lifestyle. You're a teacher 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. In the summer, you're upgrading, you're reading, you're researching, you're planning for the next year. Um, Weekends, of course, get dominated by marking, so the holidays, so the storm days. You know what the difference is between a school day and a storm day for a teacher? They get more done on a storm day because they have the opportunity to sit at home with their coffee and mark and plan and catch up on all the stuff that the school day does not allow them to do. You have to throw yourself into it completely. You have to understand that it is not just what you do, it is who you are. And at some point in the last few years, I became to realize I came to realize that that wasn't the case for me anymore. If it ever had been, I wasn't a teacher. I was an actor. I was pretending. Um, I like to think that I still had a positive influence on some students, and in some ways, I was still good at my job, but it didn't come naturally to me. Developing the relationships, um, it just never came that naturally to me. Part of it may have been my Tourette's. Part of it may have been my anxiety. I'm not naturally somebody who is outgoing and forthcoming and reaches people on an emotional level. I'm more of an intellectual. Um, I I taught for 22 years, and I've been away from it for a year and a half now. And the other day, I don't remember what I was doing. I think I was sitting here at my computer, and I suddenly saw, I'm not a teacher, and I never will be again. Now, I didn't retire by choice. I was injured. I suffered a concussion that has had lifelong effects, probably at this point. It's been a year and a half. Um, it's not my first concussion. I've had several, and concussions have been in the news a lot. People have talked about concussion protocols and damage that can happen. And the fact is, I still get headaches. I still have trouble focusing. I can teach a class. I can tutor a student for an hour. But if I try to do 2 or 3 kids on the same day, it just knocks me out. Um, I actually had one kid come to see me, and it was grade 11 math. I can do grade 11 math in my sleep. And I was having trouble remembering things and figuring things out because she was the second or third student I'd had that day. And I said, look, I'm not even going to take your money. I can't do this today. Getting through a full day of teaching, I can do it if I'm having a good day. But then I'm a write-off for 2 or 3 days after that. And it's dizziness, it's headaches, it's difficulty concentrating. I find myself using a calculator more now than I ever used to. It used to be kind of a game I had in my physics class in particular. We would do a problem together, and I would try to get the answer without a calculator, be faster than the kids could with them. And I usually won that game. Um, Not quite as quick anymore. Kind of struggling with that a bit. But I still want to contribute to society. I still want to do something useful with my life. I just don't know what it's going to be now because all of my training has been in the direction of being an educator. And, do I write? Do I publish? Do I try to focus on things like that? Because when I'm writing, if I'm at home, I can take a break every 20 minutes if I have to. I can go lie down and come back to it. And, computers are a wonderful invention for that. But I don't really know if I even want to stay in the field of education. Um, I feel like I'd like to try something new. And again, I'm limited between the concussion recovery and the Tourette's. I'm limited as to what I can do. Saw an ad today for a bartender job. I thought, hey, maybe that'll be kind of cool. But as it is right now, I'm not working outside the home at all, except for some stuff that I'm doing online. Again, I can do that more easily because I can do it from home. It's challenging to get to the age where you're middle-aged, you're getting close to 50, and suddenly you have this revelation about your life. What do I do now? I'm hoping to have quite a few years left. I'm hoping to have decades left. What started this downfall? It kind of, like I say, I taught for a long time. My life kind of went to hell a couple of years ago. It was around this time of year. It was a little later in the year. It was actually Victoria Day. My wife went into the hospital for what should have been a routine procedure. There was a complication. She spent about 3 weeks in hospital, comatose for most of it. And ultimately, I finally had to, in consultation with the doctors, make the decision to take her off life support. So I missed about the last 6 weeks of school that year. And then I had 2 months by myself with my thoughts. I became an insomniac. Um, and when school started up in September, I wasn't ready. I wasn't sleeping. And so I would get headaches throughout the day. And I had to go home a couple of times and a little trouble concentrating. And I just really wasn't ready to be there. Now my life turned around. My life took a very positive direction. I met someone wonderful. Actually, re-met somebody I had known many years before. And my life took off in a very positive direction. Personally, it's fantastic. I'm happier on a personal level than I've ever been in my life. The struggle is the professional level. What do I do? Where do I go? I know I'm kind of rambling. This is turning into a long video. I'm seeing 11 and a half minutes on the bottom of my screen there. Come to the point, Dave. Well, for most of my teaching career, and it's still in there, carried a copy in my wall of the Starfish story. Most of you probably know the Starfish story. If you don't, it talks about a young man walking along the beach and then an older man walking along the beach after a storm. The older man sees the young man picking up starfish and throwing them back into the water. And there are thousands and thousands of these starfish on the beach that have washed up throughout the storm. And the old man asks the young man, "What are you doing? Why are you throwing them back in the water?" He says, "Well, if I don't, they'll die." And the old man says, "Well, there's thousands of them there. You can't do them all. You can't possibly make a difference." The young man picks up a starfish, throws it back in the water, and says, "Made a difference to that one." And at times when I got low in teaching, I used to pull that story out or at least think about it. And it kind of gave me the idea that, yeah, you don't always see the immediate rewards, but what you're doing is worthwhile. I'm not there anymore. I hope for the best for my students. If there's any way, some of them still come back to me for help years later as university students, as young adults working in the world. A couple of people who've become teachers occasionally ask my opinion or advice or draw on my experience. And that's great. I love that. I love being that kind of resource for people. On a personal level, am I willing to do it for a living anymore? I think it's time I face the truth. I'm not a teacher. And maybe I never was.